So far, the local functions we've looked at have all been fairly boring. They're defined within another function's scope, but they don't really interact with the enclosing scope. However, we did see that local functions can reference bindings in their enclosing scope via the LEGB rule. Furthermore, we saw that local functions can be returned from their defining scope and executed in another scope. This raises an interesting question. How does a local function use bindings to objects defined in a scope that no longer exists? That is, once a local function is returned from its enclosing scope, that enclosing scope is gone, along with any local objects it defined. How can the local function operate without that enclosing scope? The answer is that the local function forms what is known as a closure. A closure essentially remembers the objects from the enclosing scope that the local function needs. It then keeps them alive so that when the local function is executed, they can still be used. One way to think of this is that the local function closes over the objects it needs, preventing them from being garbage collected. Python implements closures with a special attribute named dunderClosure. If a function closes over any objects, then that function has a dunderClosure attribute which maintains the necessary references to those objects. We can see that in a simple example. The dunderClosure attribute of LF indicates that LF is a closure, and we can see that the closure is referring to a single object. In this case, that object is the x variable defined in the function that defined LF. So we can see that local functions can safely use objects from their enclosing scope, but how is this really useful?